Hello, welcome to Beekeeping 101 with Gary Fawcett. And just ask yourself, have you ever thought about taking up beekeeping, but just don't know where to start? Well, this presentation will answer that and many other questions. So who am I? Well, I'm Gary, a beekeeper from Kiwimana in the hills of the Waitaki Ranges. And we run a beekeeping show and podcast, and we've been downloaded in over 156 countries. And we also have a beekeeping blog about how to do things and what to look out for in the world of beekeeping throughout the seasons. And we sell beekeeping supplies to the hobbyist market around the world. And you can find us at kiwimana.co.nz. And the number one question we hear every day out there, guys, is how can I become a beekeeper? And hopefully this presentation will address that issue and we'll get started. Okay, the first thing is get a good beekeeping book. And this will help you learn the lingo of beekeeping. And a good one in New Zealand is The Practical Beekeeping in New Zealand by Andrew Matheson and Murray Reid. It's available at most bookstores or at Kiwimana. And there's other good books too, there's one called Beekeeping for Dummies, which is an American book. So the seasons are a bit wrong, but the information in there is good. And these may be available at your local library as well. Next thing I'd recommend is join a local beekeeping club. And there's a lot of these around the country. And these are a great place to get started. They often have bee suits as well, so you can actually see what it's like working a hive and listen to some beekeepers work in the hive and just see what it's like before you actually get your own bees, so you're not so overwhelmed when you get them. And you can also make friends with local beekeepers and get some local tips from them. And we have a list of beekeeping clubs on a map, and that's at kiwi.bz/bkclubs, and that link will also be included in the handout at the end of this presentation. And that map has a list. It's got a map of New Zealand, and it has every bee club listed there. Another great thing to do is attend a beekeeping class or course, and these are often run by the local beekeeping clubs, and so you can check those out. And a lot of the night school programs that have been run in high schools and schools around the country, they often have beekeeping classes as well. And there also is some correspondence ones as well, but I think having practical experience is probably a better way to go. So try and look out for one that involves some practical work with the bees. So you really need to get your hands in a hive rather than just read the books about it. And beekeeping supplies, you've got to have beekeeping supplies to put your bees into. So I recommend we get some hive boxes, get some frames, and get some roofs. And the boxes, as you can see in this photo, they basically have about 10 frames in each one. And this specific photo, this is plastic frames, but and we recommend wooden frames with wax sheets. And get some basic tools, like you really need a hive tool, a bee brush, and a smoker, and a frame holder. So that's a really good idea to get one of those. And that's the frame holder there, and with the highlighter on. And I also recommend get a veil or a beekeeping suit, because that really helps you sort of slows down the stings to you. Also, it's a good idea to start with some gloves, because it just gives you a bit more confidence while you're learning about how to do the bees. I mean, ultimately you probably want to go glove free, but to get started I think you should get some gloves. Also, avoid second-hand hiveware, guys, because sometimes these have brood diseases in them, and diseases such as American foul brood can last in the hives for up to 45 or 50 years. So we have heard of cases of people like getting all their granddad's old gear out of the back shed, and it's been full of American foul brood. So you've got to be really careful with old gear, unless you're really certain that from the person that you're buying it from or you're getting it from that they had no disease in them. So be very wary of stuff you get off Trade Me that you don't know the source that well. And now I'm just going to talk about some hive options in New Zealand. So this is the house where the bees live. So we just want to go through some different options you come across. And the normal one is a Langstroth hive box. This is the box you see on the side of the road occasionally. And this is the ones a lot of commercial guys will use. They're easily transportable. They're easy to work, and yeah, they're all the boxes are the same size, so they all fit on top of each other. This is called the Langstroth box, which was invented by Reverend Langstroth in the 1800s in America. Okay, and the next one is a long bench hive. This uses conventional Langstroth frames, but it's horizontally based, so it's kind of like a bench. It is a bench hive, and the only thing you need to lift on this one is the roof, and then each individual frame comes out. There's no stacking of boxes on top of it, so it's basically a horizontal hive. And these are very popular nowadays with people that don't really appreciate the heavy lifting of the 50 kg boxes. And the next one is the worry hive, and this is like it is almost like a Langstroth hive, except this one has frames. It has frames in the top. Sorry, it has top bar frames, so the frames aren't conventional, and these are smaller than Langstroth boxes, and the boxes are actually square. So this was invented by a guy in France. It's a different kind of system to use, and the people that use them swear by them. So you just need to investigate that idea as well. And the last option, which should be in the bottom, but it's a top bar hive, and this is kind of like a long bench hive, except the frames are just the top bar, hence the name. And this is popular in places like Kenya and stuff where they're easy to make. They're very low cost to make these kind of hives because there's no specific dimensions, and the frames are just like slats of wood. Disadvantage of these is when you first start them, it can be difficult for the comb to stick to the frames, and sometimes it falls off. So these are kind of hard for a beginner to use, I feel. I would stick with a Langstroth hive box if I was starting out. And this is the kind of thing you probably want to get a couple of years after you start beekeeping. So that's the 4 types that I know of in New Zealand. I mean, there's obviously other kinds of ones that other people use, but these are the ones that are approved by the government. Next step is get your bees. Now you can get your bees from your local bee clubs. Often they have people there selling splits. They call them splits of their hives. Other ideas, you can do swarms, and yeah, just get locate some bees. And bees are normally sold in what is called a nuke or a nucleus hive. And these are around about 5 frames of bees. That's 5 Langstroth full depth frames. And also always ask to see their decker number, guys, because that proves that they've got a disease conformity license, and it kind of proves they're certified to recognise disease in hives. And if they can't recognise disease in hives, then really you shouldn't be buying from them. The next thing is find a local mentor. This is invaluable because, some information, like remember all beekeeping is local. Things that work in Texas might not work so well in your local area. Well, unless you're in Texas, obviously. And, getting a local mentor can help with your local conditions. They can tell you when to start putting supers on. They can tell you when to start the wintering down situations and all sorts of local information. And you can also ask questions that aren't covered in any books. And tips, you might find a mentor at the local bee club. So get involved in the local bee clubs. Other things to do. Well, follow beekeeping blogs. There's lots of great blogs around the world. And, get some ideas off them. Just remember, as we said before, all beekeeping is local. So things that work in other countries may not work so well here, but you can get ideas from them. And try stuff on a small scale and see how you get on. Also, join the Urban Beekeeping group in New Zealand. It's a Facebook group in Facebook, and it's got about 700 people on there, and people ask questions and answer questions. So it's a great little community that we're building up. And watch beekeeping videos on YouTube. There's heaps of videos on on the YouTube, and we've got some videos on there. And there's a really good one called Trev's Bees. Highly recommend his videos. He's got a lot of beginning kind of videos on there, and they're all Kiwi videos, so check them out. Also, join our free beekeeping newsletter. It's kiwi.bz/signup, and that'll be included in the show notes. But join our newsletter. We have a weekly newsletter. A fortnightly newsletter that comes out every fortnight, and where we have tips and tricks and also news about beekeeping related stories from New Zealand and other countries. And of course, listen to beekeeping podcasts. Myself and Margaret, my partner, have a beekeeping podcast that we release every 2 weeks where we talk about beekeeping news, tips and tricks, and we also interview beekeepers from around the world. And we've interviewed quite a few sort of famous beekeepers from around the world and get their insights into what makes them tick and get some tips and tricks from them. So that's always useful to do. And the good thing about podcasts, you can listen to them in your car or while you're working in the garage making beehive boxes, you can listen away. And all the slides and handouts can be found at kiwi.bz/LSB. And so thanks for listening, guys. Just if you've got any questions, type them now or leave them in the comments below.